Part 32. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 311. Chapter 311 Pride. And the giant tiger screamed and fell to the ground. Arrogant, Yuan jumped over and packed it in a storage bag. Yuan curled her lips, dared to come in without 2 brushes. There was hope that the little snake could recover now, but it was a pity that it did not follow. The 2 of them cleaned up the place, then cut off large pieces of the giant tiger's meat on the spot, and started barbecue. After a long time, the smell of meat came from the shelf. It smells so good. The 5th level is the 5th level. It's delicious. Right at the beginning, Yuan looked at Mujukan, who was roasting smoothly beside the fire. She took a few deep breaths of the meat's fragrance and waited to be fed. "Wait a minute," Mujukan said softly. Yuan came closer to him and snuggled next to him. Mujukan turned his head to look at her and smiled softly. Mujukan handed the roasted skewer to her. "Try it first." "Well, it must be delicious." Yuan took the barbecue, straightened up, smiled at him, and then bit into the barbecue with a smile. Mujukan also turned his head, kissed the top of her hair gently, and continued to grill the meat. An hour later, the 2 of them felt their full bellies and then entered the space to digest and refine. The spiritual power of the 5th level demon beast Han was indeed something they could not boast about. It took them 2 full days to refine it. At the same time, the spiritual power in their bodies has increased a lot. "Well, eat less next time." Yuan patted her mouth. She ate too much this time. It took the 2 of them 2 days to refine in space, and another 5 days in bed. Mujukan didn't let her go until she could no longer hum. She looked at Mujukan next to her. 5 days later, this man was still alive and kicking. This made those seconds in the previous life so embarrassing. After Yuan swallowed a healing pill, she lay in his arms and fell asleep. The next day, Yuan got up early and looked around in the elixir field. The elixir seeds they had sown before had sprouted, and now they could tell what elixir they were. So Yuan planted them one by one. The lowest priced ones were all elixirs of level 7 or above. She moved them all into the red soil, where they grew 10 times faster. "Plant it now, and it will be ready when they need it later." The ones that are no longer needed on the red soil are either pulled out directly or moved to the black soil outside. After that, he planted all the seedlings collected in Juya Forbidden Land during this period, and put the mature ones in jade boxes. There are not many mature ones in the Juya Forbidden Land, but there are many seedlings, and Yuan doesn't mind it. It's difficult to find these elixir seedlings outside. Whatever is not available in the space, she will dig it into the space and plant it. She collected all the elixirs of the 1st and 2nd levels, planted the 3rd level ones together, and planted the 4th level, 5th level, 7th level, 8th level, and 9th level elixirs separately. The only thing left is the 6th level. The highest level among the 9 forbidden lands is the 5th level, and there is no 6th level. The 7th, 8th and 9th level ones were naturally obtained from Huang Chuying. The 2 of them worked in the space for a whole month before planting. Yuan stood in the elixir field with her hands on her hips. Looking at the vibrant elixirs, she felt a sense of pride in her heart. Which monk in the world has such a precious space like her to grow elixirs? With a flash of consciousness, several storage bags appeared in her hands, and she dumped all the monster corpses inside into the black earth. There is no use for keeping these monster beast meats. Now there are 5th level monsters appearing. If you eat them, you must eat high level ones. Let the space swallow them up. Anyway, there are so many monsters here, they can hunt and kill them at will. They don't have a good impression of monsters, not to mention that these monsters want to eat them. In the end, only the giant tiger that was killed before was left. Yuan took the demon pill and gave the skin and bones to Muju to refine the weapon. There is no problem in refining a few pieces of armor from a 5th level tiger skin. Mujukan went to refine weapons, And she also went to refine pills, and made a lot of marrow cleansing pills. They will both take one pill every month, so that the impurities in their bodies are basically gone. On this day, Yuan had nothing to do, so she entered the trap again to chat with ghosts. Yuan sat on the ground, holding her head with her hands, looking at the ghost lying on the ground. Hey, what's your name? The ghost moved. Qin Ming. Oh, Qin Ming, were you in the stage of becoming it during your lifetime? Yes. Tisk, 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 you are also an unlucky ghost. You are about to ascend to the spiritual world and end up as a ghost. Yuan said a few words of regret for him. Little fairy, if you want to ask anything, just ask it. Hey, why are you so direct? Can't we just chat all day long? The ghost thought, how bored are you to come to chat with ghosts? Hey. It's boring. Okay, I just want to ask, who has the great ability to set up these 9 forbidden areas? Or is it naturally formed? There is obviously a lot of spiritual energy here, but there are no monks. Isn't it strange, but they didn't forget the reminder from heaven when they got married. If this ghost has a low level of cultivation and he doesn't know, it would make sense, but for a monk who transforms into gods, that may not be the case. Ghost, I really don't know what the little fairy asked me. This continent has only been around for 100,000 years since humans existed. It can be considered a brand new continent. A whole new continent? It's really weird to cultivate spiritual power and mysterious power at the same time. There is also an even more bizarre 9 forbidden areas in the middle. If one day the restrictions in the forbidden area are no longer there, then if the monsters inside escape, how can the humans on both sides stop them? Isn't the end the same as Xianling continent? What the hell? Yuan felt cold sweat on her vest when she thought of this. She had a feeling that this continent and the Xianling continent were also man-made. She definitely doesn't know the purpose, but it's definitely not a good thing. How many of your god transformation monks have ascended? Yuan asked again. The ghost didn't say anything for a long time, and seemed to be thinking about something. He used to be a monk who transformed gods, so he was certainly not stupid. He didn't believe that Yuan's questions were pointless. There are quite a lot of cultivators who transform themselves into gods, but not many people want to ascend after all. It's not that easy to ascend. Not everyone can pass the thunder tribulation. Yeah, she believed it. Yuan felt that there was nothing to ask. She came out of the trap and saw that Mujukan was still in retreat. Her consciousness moved out of the space. Let's dig for the elixir. Things haven't reached that point yet. Let's talk about it when it does. This is the territory of the giant tiger. The giant tiger is dead, so she wants to continue digging for elixirs here. When her cultivation reaches the golden core stage, her spiritual consciousness is stronger, and her soul stabs can be used to fire 20 times instantly. She will not be afraid of 5th level opponents as long as she does not encounter opponents who use their souls to attack. Level 4 monsters are now a piece of cake for her. So Yuan boldly dug for elixirs in this area, not to mention there were quite a few high-level elixirs. Unconsciously, Yuan had deviated from the giant tiger's territory and was slowly moving towards the middle of the mountains. Ouch, ow, ow, ow. Suddenly, a group of demon wolves surrounded her. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 312. Chapter 312 Swamp. Yuan realized that she was among the wolves when she came to her senses. She stood up. It was not like she had never dealt with wolves before. She hadn't fought in a long time, so she wanted to fight today. The wolf pack is getting closer and closer, and the leader of the wolf is actually a 5th level 3-flowered demon wolf king with a head and a length of 1 foot. It is staring at Yuan excitedly. It has not seen the monk for a long time. The flesh of a monk has much more spiritual energy than the flesh of a mortal. He is just a minor cultivator and lacks spiritual energy, but it is better than nothing. After the three-flower demon wolf king looked up to the sky and howled, the other demon wolves immediately stopped and surrounded Yuan from a distance. Only he slowly walked towards her. "Aren't you here to fight?" Yuan did not take action, waiting for the three-flower demon wolf king to approach. The distance is too far, which is not good for the hit rate of the soul stab. The three-flower demon wolf king stopped 10 feet away from her, which was just the right distance. It also looked at Yuan seriously and saw that she was not afraid of him. The three-flower demon wolf king is a little confused. Shouldn't all monks be afraid or run away when they see it? This little Xiu is not afraid of it? Well, that's interesting. It's a bit reluctant to eat her. The three-flower demon wolf king looked at her for a while, wondering if he could capture her and make her his wolf queen. She happened to be a female. "Female humans, go back with me and become my wolf queen," it thought, and said it. "What?" Yuan looked around to make sure it was the three-flower wolf king who was talking to her. "Be my king's wolf queen," the three-flower demon wolf king said patiently. He thought Yuan didn't hear clearly or was too excited. Haha. Yuan couldn't help laughing. She had seen countless monsters when she grew up. This was the first time she saw a monster that had a crush on humans. She didn't want to eat it, but wanted to marry it as a wife. Son. Yuan really didn't dare to think about the scene of a she-male. The style of the painting was too inconsistent. "You agreed." The three-flowered demon wolf king saw her dazzling smile and took a few steps closer to her. "No, no," Yuan straightened up and waved to the three-flower demon wolf king quickly, and then her consciousness was always ready for the soul thorn. Three-flower demon wolf king stopped, his eyes flashed fiercely. This human female dared to laugh at her. Suddenly, its huge body jumped up and rushed towards Yuan. Snort. "I'm so proud of her, but I don't know what to do with it. It's easier to eat." Fortunately, its people didn't know that it failed to court a mate, otherwise they would have laughed at it to death. Then what is the power of the Wolf King? In an instant, the Wolf King's bucket-thick front claw had become as big as his body, and he grabbed Yuan with a roar of spiritual power. Any vegetation that blocked its claws was turned into powder by the powerful spiritual power. Yuan looked at the long-pointed claws. If she was caught by these long-pointed claws, 10 of her would not be enough to string together. She did not panic. She put a protective shield around her body. Her consciousness immediately locked onto the Wolf King's head and fired out the soul thorn she had prepared. 10 soul thorns were sent out. Ouch, hateful female! The three-flower demon Wolf King felt the danger. It swung its body to the right and dodged the 10 soul thorns. Bang bang, the huge body of the three-flower demon Wolf King suddenly lost weight, and its 2 giant claws grabbed the ground. Its claws penetrated deeply into the ground, and the ground immediately shook like an earthquake. Ouch, 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 the three-flower demon Wolf King was furious. A small human female dared to attack it? It howled loudly several times, and wolves from all directions surrounded it. And it immediately pulled out its giant claws, and the ground shook again. Hoo, the giant claw swung towards Yuan without stopping at all. Yuan saw that she had missed the soul thorn and had already stepped aside. When she saw the giant claws swinging at her again, the wolves surrounded her. Without saying a word, she locked onto the three-flower demon Wolf King again and fired another 20 attacks. However, these 20 attacks were divided into 4 directions and attacked from all sides. No matter how it tried to dodge, one of them would always hit it. At the same time that she sent out the soul thorn, there was no trace of her. Ouch, ouch, bang, 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 boom, boom, boom. As expected, the three-flower demon Wolf King was hit on one side. It howled in pain, its huge body rolled on the ground, and its claws clawed. In an instant, the forest was in a mess within a 10-mile radius, and the three-flower demon wolf king's screams shook the forest into a barren land. The demon wolves saw their king falling to the ground in pain and went crazy. Instead of retreating, they all crawled on the ground and watched helplessly as their king died. In the space, Yuan entered the red earth, sat by the black pool, and began to regain her consciousness. Sending 30 soul thorns in succession will consume more than half of the spiritual consciousness and must be replenished immediately to prepare for the next battle. The three-flower demon wolf king was hit by her soul thorn, but there are so many three-flower demon wolf out there, and all of them are extraordinary in strength. After Yuan recovered, Mujukan was still refining weapons in her consciousness, and a handful of talismans came out of the space with the movement of her consciousness. The demon wolves did not leave, they were still crawling on the ground, and they saw her appear in the blink of an eye. The anger in the eyes of the demon wolves almost burned her. They immediately got up, roared to the sky, and then flew towards her. That speed, that anger turned into a thunderous running sound. Yuan pointed at the flying sword at the same time, and the flying sword immediately turned into a giant sword. Her fingers flew, and the giant sword rushed towards the wolves in an instant. The demon wolf fell to the ground after being struck by the sword, and was immediately trampled to pieces by the demon wolves that rushed up from behind. Yuan saw the scene and secretly thought it was a pity that she couldn't wield the sword, otherwise this would be an excellent opportunity. She wielded the sword with her consciousness, and she rushed towards the demonic wolves. She sent out soul stabs and threw a handful of talismans before entering the space. Then she came out and threw a handful of talismans before entering the space again. In this way, the number of wolves gradually decreased. Enjoyed, Yuan sat in the space and shouted, "It's so enjoyable. I haven't fought like this for a long time." When she came out of the space again, the wolves were gone. Lying on the ground were wolf corpses that had been trampled and blown to pieces, and there were also some wolf corpses whose whole bodies were intact and bleeding to death. Yuan first ran to the wolf king and packed it in a storage bag, then collected the wolf carcasses on the ground before leaving. She then continued to dig for her elixir. A month later, Mujukan came out of seclusion. He finally made 2 pieces of magic armor. The 2 of them immediately recognized their owners and put them on. Then he went to seclusion to refine the magic weapon, while Yuan went around digging for medicine. Swampland. That day, Yuan came to the edge of a large swamp. As soon as her consciousness swept away, waves of unpleasant smell emitted from the swamp. Poisonous, as soon as the breath entered her body, Yuan felt dizzy. She secretly said something bad and then stepped into the space to recover. After Yuan swallowed the detoxification pill to detoxify, she sat in the practice room and thought, there is a kind of white spirit lotus in the swamp, which is one of the main medicines in the Jiying Den. Since I encountered the swamp, I must look for it. This white lotus grows in the swamp mud. It can truly emerge from the mud without being stained, and it can clean the ripples without being evil. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 313. Chapter 313 by Ling Lian. No matter how harsh and poisonous the environment is, it can still grow gracefully in it. Besides, except for its roots which are highly poisonous, the entire Bai Ling Lian plant is full of spiritual power. The flowers can be used as medicine and the stems are edible. They are the spiritual food cherished by the Tao. It's just that the poisonous gas in the swamp is too poisonous. She got up and went to the alchemy room, wanting to use the Medicine King cauldron to try out the 4th level detoxification pill. The 3rd level detoxification pill was a bit useless for trying to detoxify the swamp. If she has a 4th level antidote pill, she can enter the swamp. With a flash of consciousness, Yuan summoned the recipe for the 4th level detoxification pill in her mind. After reading it carefully, she picked 10 elixirs from the black soil. She returned to the alchemy room and started making alchemy. The 4th level detoxification pill is not difficult to practice. The difficulty is that Yuan's current physical strength and spiritual power are not enough to support the 4th level elixir, so it is very hard to refine. In the end, all 10 elixirs were in vain. Not giving up, she picked 10 more portions and continued to refine them. Hard work paid off. After wasting 100 elixirs, she finally succeeded in refining 10 4th level detoxification pills. After Yuan meditated to restore the spiritual power in her body, she suddenly jumped out of the space with a flash of consciousness, sprinkled exorcism powder on her body and took an antidote pill before entering the swamp. There are sparse shrubs in the swamp, and the ground is covered with rotten debris, exuding bursts of stench and poisonous gas. When the poisonous creatures inside saw a stranger coming in, they ran away timidly, while the bolder ones looked at her. Many of the poisonous creatures looked at her with eager eyes, trying to see if they could find a way to eat her. But as soon as he smelled the insect repellent powder on her body, he stopped moving forward and could only watch her pass by. Yuan carefully stepped on the ground, and after walking a few steps, she simply used her flying sword to explore the path while walking, and then looked around to see where there was Bailing Lian. Whoops! Suddenly a poisonous arrow shot towards her. Phew! Yuan changed shape and walked up, dodging the poisonous arrow. She looked around with her consciousness and saw a 6-foot poisonous toad. When the poisonous toad saw that it had missed a single hit, it immediately spewed out countless more blasts. The venom of this poisonous toad is very poisonous, and the 4th level detoxification pill may not be able to detoxify it. In Huang Qiuying's memory, she was attacked by this poisonous toad once. It was one of the few times in her life that she was attacked. It was also when she went out to practice with her classmates. At that time, her cultivation was still in the foundation building stage, and the poison was detoxified only after she swallowed the 5th level detoxifying pill. Yuan took another step to evade. When she had a chance to fight back, she immediately sent out 10 soul thorns, and the poisonous toad croaked several times before it died. After the poisonous toad was completely dead, she used the magic of object control to take the poisonous toad's body and throw it into the red earth. Then she continued walking inside. As we got inside, the poisonous gas became stronger, and many animal bones appeared on the ground. Furthermore, the detoxification effect of the 4th level detoxification pill inside is short, and 1 pill outside can be effective for an hour. She had just walked less than 100 miles inside, and it actually couldn't be effective for an hour. Rustling, suddenly, there was a faint sound of a giant crawling 10 feet in front of her, and it was coming towards her again. Yuan quickly took up the appearance step and ran in the other direction. Ah! She accidentally fell into the mud. Oops! Yuan shouted in her heart, and her body suddenly collapsed. The poisonous creature chasing her behind was actually a 5th level Gila monster. No wonder this thing is so fast, she hasn't noticed it yet. It is naturally able to blend into nature and can also conceal its breath. Yuan cursed secretly in her heart. She had no choice but to enter the space. The moment she entered the space, a long tongue rolled towards her, but it was still a step too late. The Gila monster retracted its long tongue, as if there was something on its tongue. It swallowed habitually, and then it lay still when it felt that there was nothing left. Yuan entered the space, cleaned the mud on her body, and changed into a magic weapon and magic robe before exiting the space. It stinks so much, Yuan pinched her nose, and with a sweep of her consciousness, it turned out. She said that it was still daytime outside and she was stuck in the mud. How come she appeared in this dark place and it smelled worse than a cesspool? Nearly smoked her to death. Yuan remained calm, and after condensing 20 soul thorns, he sent out the soul thorns with lightning speed. Children's rice. Yuan smiled happily. This was simply a food delivery. With a flash of consciousness, Du 11's corpse entered the space. She quickly dug out its demonic elixir and carefully cut off the poisonous sac. Those beautiful eyes glanced at the Gila monster corpse. This skin was much harder than the skin of the 5th level 3 flower demon Wolf King. If it was refined into armor, it would be much more defensive than the one he was wearing. She took a look at Mujukin's refining room and knew that he was not refining his magic weapon that quickly, so she peeled off the skin first. Just in time to make another batch of detoxifying pills before going out. Swish, 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 boom. Hiss, SSSS. Pot, pot, pot. At the edge of a lake, a man and a python were fighting fiercely. Yuan Zhangjiao's flying sword swished toward the python's body. The giant python is not interested in the flying sword. It spits out a long core and has a fierce look in its eyes. Its tail swings wildly at Yuan, throwing her east and west. Yuan had no choice but to get up and cast Shadow Step to get out of its attack range. She finally found a few white spirit lotus flowers, but there was this giant python guarding them. The fight lasted for 3 days. In fact, she was beaten for 3 days and she didn't get any advantage at all. The main reason is that you can't get close to its head. After the soul thorn is 20 feet away, its power is greatly reduced and it cannot hurt it. Yuan entered the space wiltingly, ready to look for another opportunity. Yuan was lying on the bed, staring at the wooden roof. She was thinking about it or lure it away. I don't know why I fell asleep while thinking about it. Yuan felt a weight on her body. She opened her eyes, and a handsome face appeared in front of her. Muju. Before she could finish speaking, her mouth was sealed. A few days later, the two came out of space. Wan'er, I'll lure it away later, and you can pick it, Mujukin said while looking at the giant python. No, there is no need to lure us away, and we don't need to separate. There are too many 5th level monsters here. There is a 5th order monster within about 50 miles. They each have their own territory and usually do not interfere with each other, but whenever there is a situation, they will still come out to help. She jumps up and down like a monkey when she is alone. There is a danger in entering the space. If they are separated, it is even more dangerous. It would be better for her to be outside alone. Now that the two of them are out, they can use the soul stab to attack the giant python at 360 degrees without any blind spots. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 314. Chapter 314 by Ling Lian is obtained. Okay, then we can attack the left and right at the same time. Mujukin thought about it and agreed, so the two of them approached the giant python. The python thought that the human had disappeared and left, but to his surprise, two people actually showed up and found helpers. Of course it knew that they were definitely attacking by Ling Lian, which it had guarded for so long. It was so angry that when it was about to mature, two human monks appeared to cut off its beard. It suddenly raised its tail and swept towards the two of them, whoosh, whoosh, and the big tail swept towards them. The two of them were already prepared. They used the footwork on their feet to approach from left to right, and flew towards the python's attack zone. If it is a person, the giant python can change its attack method at will to avoid the incoming soul stabs. However, if it is flanked by two sides, the giant python will either abandon one and attack the other, and it will not be able to dodge the soul stabs of the other. If you want to avoid getting hurt, you have to either retreat or run forward. The two of them estimated that it would run forward and use the opportunity to attack them with its tail. So before the giant python could think of a move, the two of them jumped on the giant python at the same time. After sending out soul stabs at the same time, They summoned flying swords to insert into the giant python's body at the same time to prevent being attacked by the giant python. Throw it off. The two of them cooperated very well this time and succeeded at the same time. Hiss, hiss. The giant python was hit by the soul stab and had lost its ability to attack. It was so painful that it kept twisting its body and slapping its tail, trying to throw the two of them off. The two of them had taken precautions early. Wanner, do it again. Mujukin saw that the giant python was not completely dead yet. Good. The two of them fired 20 soul thorns at the same time. Bang, the two of them shouted at the same time. Bang, a loud noise came, and the two people immediately put up a defensive shield on their bodies. Pa bang bang. The red and white pieces of meat were scattered on the two people's defensive shields like a goddess scattering flowers. After 10 breaths, the scene fell silent. The two of them took off their defensive shields. After Yuan put the body of the giant python into the storage bag, he immediately ran to the White Lotus. The two simply raised the flying swords in their hands and dug up the 3 White Lotus. Mujukin, hurry up, let's enter the space. The smell of blood here has attracted high-level monsters. Okay, Mujukin rolled up by Linglian and Yuan into the space. In the space, Yuan threw the storage bag containing the giant python to Mujukin. You take this guy out first, I have to plant these 3 plants first. These 3 Linglian plants are not mature yet, otherwise there would be nothing wrong with them. Okay, Mujukin took the storage bag and left, and Yuan entered the red earth with Linglian's consciousness. There was no open space inside, so she simply dug a hole next to the black pond and planted 3 white spirit lotus plants. Yuan sat down and looked at the white jade like Linglian. She really couldn't believe that it grew in poisonous gas. There are 10 main medicines for the Yingji Dan. Now there are 3, and there are still 7 to go. I hope this trip to Juyu can successfully complete the mission. Yuan sat by the black pool for a long time before coming out. Wanner, come here. Is that the python meat? Yuan walked into the wooden house. There was a plate of barbecue and a pot of soup on the table, and there was a strong fragrance. Well, eat quickly. Mujukin looked at her with a smile. He liked watching Wanner eat the food he made. Okay, you're good at speed. She sat down, picked up the barbecue and ate it. You don't want to eat? Yuan saw that he only watched her eat without doing anything. Mujukin shook his head. Forget it, she eats it. Why don't you eat such delicious python meat? Doesn't it smell good? This python meat is so tender, so delicious, and full of spiritual power. Yuan did not dare to eat more this time and put it down when it was almost done. After eating, Yuan refined the spiritual power of the python meat, and then the two of them came out of space. Sure enough, as soon as they came out, they saw the footprints of monsters scattered on the ground. They left here with their footwork. On a piece of grass, there are not many tall trees here, just some low shrubs. 50 feet away in front of the two of them, a rumbling sound sounded. In a moment, the place was filled with dust. A black demonic bull that was more than 10 feet tall rushed towards them with 2 huge curved horns. The two of them looked at each other and realized that this battle was too huge. Have they both experienced such harm? Attract this herd of demonic cattle. It's just a demon cow. This beef is an excellent barbecue ingredient. This bold foodie didn't take the danger seriously at all, and her mind was filled with roast beef, braised beef, steak, soy sauce meat. All the ways to eat beef went through her mind. The saliva in his mouth inadvertently filled his mouth with a mouthful. Gilo, Yuan swallowed. Wanner, here we come, be careful. Mujukin was also drunk. At this time, Wanner focused on eating. Boom boom boom, moo moo. After the leading demon bull king roared, it rushed towards the two of them as if it saw an enemy. I'm going, Yuan swore. They became mice crossing the street in this Juya forest. As soon as the monsters saw them, they rushed up and shouted to kill them. The kings all rushed over, and naturally the descendants and grandsons of the cattle behind the demonic ox king also rushed towards them. The demonic ox king was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to a stop when they were 20 feet away, leaving his descendants and grandsons far behind. After the demon bull king stopped, he looked up to the sky and yelled moo moo 3 times, then stared at them with 2 big red eyes. Seemed to eat them. At this time, a circle of black light appeared on its black horns, covering it entirely. Huh, it can also defend itself, Yuan was surprised. None of the 5th level monsters in the past took them seriously, thinking they were just 2 weaklings. Today, the demon bull king, who is known for his strong skin, also knows how to defend. Waner, don't be careless. Mujukan did not ignore the hatred in the eyes of the demon bull king. He thought about it carefully and found that he had never killed the bull demon before. Okay, Yuan nodded. The demon ox king's sons and grandsons were already running over. Moo moo, the demon bull king roared at the sky a few more times, and then attacked them both with its horns. In the blink of an eye, Yuan pulled Mujukan into the space from a distance of 20 feet. Just kidding, it's impossible to fight these mad cows. They have to sneak attack. Boom. With a loud noise, the demon bull king saw that the target had disappeared. The bull's hooves did not stop the car, and he could not stop his hooves at once. The horns of the bull were deeply inserted into a large mountain on the edge of the grassland. Moo, the demon bull king roared and pulled hard. Boom. A tall mountain was flattened in this way. Moo, the hateful human monk, it wanted to kill them, and it immediately ordered its descendants to dig 3 feet into the ground to find them. The sons and grandsons of Niu were ordered to look for him everywhere. Moo moo. Suddenly several demon cows in the demon cow group fell to the ground, screamed a few times and died. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 315. Chapter 315 Stealing the Spiritual Fruit. The strange thing is that the bodies of the dead demon cows disappeared all of a sudden. Moo moo. The demon cows suddenly panicked, and their sons and grandsons fled in all directions, fearing that it would be the next one to die. The 2 people in the space saw that they had succeeded, and they flashed out of the space again. How did the bull demons know that Yuan wore hidden clothes on their bodies, and immediately entered the space after sending out soul thorns? When the demon bull died, Yuan took it back to the space. She was so unnoticed among the panicked cattle that even the 5th level demon bull king didn't notice her movements. The demon bull king was so angry that he ran over. He looked around and found nothing. He was so angry that he kicked his forehooves wildly. He dug several big holes on the ground and filled the sky with dust. Moo moo. A few more fell down and died. Moo moo. Moo moo. Screams kept ringing out, one in the east and the other in the west. The demonic ox king was really helpless. Seeing so many of his descendants and grandchildren falling down, his cows were so heartbroken that they could not breathe. It yelled a few times, calling for its descendants and grandsons to leave immediately. Not a single hair of the human monk was touched, and many of its own descendants were broken off. At this moment, the demonic ox king's sea of consciousness exploded with a bang. Moo moo. He kicked off his forehooves and returned to the west. His 2 bull's eyes were bulging, and he would not rest in peace. Hey, Yuan finally appeared. I want to run away. I didn't want to kill you in the first place. You have to seek death yourself. Yuan kicked it twice and put it into the storage bag. When the other demon bulls saw that the demon bull king was dead, they dispersed early. Yuan didn't chase after her. It was enough to get such a big demon bull king. She was not greedy. Of course they killed a 5th level demon bull king, so they must have run away first. In any case, one shot is exchanged for another, and never stay in one place for a long time. They found a secret place to enter the space, and Mujukin naturally went to bake delicious food. And Yuan skinned all the other demon cow carcasses, cleaned them and then pickled them. If you want to eat them later, you can cook them. Not every kind of monster meat is so delicious. The meat of snakes, cattle, pigs, deer, rabbits, and birds is very delicious. Their meat is not so bad and tastes very good. Not to mention they have a large family, and even if these are divided, one person will not be able to get much. Yuan had another delicious meal, and then refining it again. Mujukin also ate a lot this time. At this time, she realized that Mujukin didn't just refuse to eat but was very selective. This man, Yuan, was speechless for a long time. By the time Yuan finished refining, her cultivation level had increased a lot during this period. She had been eating high-level monster meat, and she was engaged in large and small battles every day. Promoting to the middle stage of Jindan is just around the corner. But Mujukin is faster, and he is already in the late stage of Jindan. Yuan couldn't catch up even if she tried to flatter him. That day, the two of them picked elixirs in the forest again, and they got another kapok leaf, the main medicine. Waner, come and see, what is that? Yuan looked in the direction Mujukin pointed and saw a large fruit forest with red spiritual fruits that were already ripe. Heaven, this is the 4th level earth spirit fruit, and that is the 5th level white vermilion fruit. Yuan couldn't believe that there was a large spiritual fruit orchard here, and the white vermilion fruit was one of the main ingredients in the Jiying Dan. Hoo. Yuan suppressed her racing little heart. There must be powerful monsters watching here, let's be careful, Mujukin said. There were too many powerful monsters in Juya forest. Without strength, it would be impossible to defend this fruit forest. Yes, I know they are probably demon monkeys. Their favorite thing is to brew monkey wine, which also requires a large amount of spiritual fruits. Only they know how to grow spiritual fruits. Yuan still knows this common sense, but it may take some tricks to harvest these spiritual fruits. She took out the invisibility cloak, and the two of them put it on. The two of them quietly approached the orchard. Ho. Before they got close, a demon monkey spotted them, immediately warned them, and climbed towards them. They climbed the tree too fast, and the monster monkey arrived as soon as they entered the space. Hizzy. Seeing that the demon monkey had lost its breath, it scratched its head, rolled its eyes a few times, and then sat on the tree. Hey, you're quite smart, Yuan looked out in space and touched her chin with her hand. Monkeys are smart. Since she was promoted to the Golden Core, her spiritual consciousness has become stronger again. She can actually see everything outside with her spiritual consciousness, but her spiritual consciousness cannot be extended so far outside the space. But if you can see it, that's enough. The demon monkey was waiting outside, and they practiced in the space. They were not in a hurry anyway, and she still didn't believe that the demon monkey would not leave. Yuan miscalculated this time. Instead of not leaving, the demonic monkey attracted another demonic monkey. He squeaked a few times and then left, leaving the demonic monkey waiting there. Yuan laughed. This time the boat capsized in the gutter. It would be very difficult to steal this spiritual fruit. She didn't want to hurt these monster monkeys. After all, she wanted to steal people's spiritual fruits. Mujukin, how about we stun the monster monkey and then let it go after we get it, Yuan asked. Always waiting like this is not an option. Okay, let's go out and escape underground first. This monster monkey shouldn't be able to escape from the earth, Mujukin nodded. Good, mainly because the demon monkey is too fast and cannot defeat others on the ground. The two put on the invisibility cloak, and as soon as they came out, they escaped underground. Hizzy. The demon monkey noticed the fluctuation of spiritual power, immediately jumped down from the tree, and followed their aura. Hizzy, the demon monkey found that it had no breath. It grabbed each other with both hands and looked up at the orchard, looking confused. Attack, underground. The two of them saw the demon monkey squatting on the ground and looking around, and Yuan sent a message. Mujukan only sent out 2 coins. The demon monkey who was looking around suddenly covered his head and screamed "Zhi Zhi Zhi" incessantly. Oops, the hair is low, hurry, let's go out. After saying that, Mujukan picked up Yuan and fled to the ground. Yuan took the monster monkey away in an instant. It only took 2 or 3 breaths for the demon monkey to fall to the ground. It should not have disturbed the other demon monkeys. The two of them took the opportunity to pick a lot of spiritual fruits. Yuan even escaped under a white vermilion fruit tree and moved the entire white vermilion fruit into the space. Then we moved a few more plants in the same way. Waner, hurry up, the monster monkey is coming, Mujukan urged her anxiously when Yuan was moving a 5th order jade bead fruit tree. Okay, come here quickly, Yuan also sent a message. Mujukan took a step forward and appeared next to Yuan in 2 steps. Her consciousness wrapped around the fruit tree and moved into the space with force, and the two of them entered at the same time. Huh, it's okay, Yuan got up. The time was just right. The moment they entered the space, at least 2 5th level monster monkeys came over. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 316. Chapter 316 The monkey wine is obtained. Are you okay? Mujukan helped her into the wooden house distressedly. His wife's behavior was so virtuous when she saw the treasure that her life didn't matter anymore. This time he knew that Yuan had used all her spiritual consciousness to move the fruit tree in. Sigh, Mujukan sighed in his heart, his strength was still too weak, otherwise there would be no need for his wife to take risks. Yuan entered the wooden house and waved to Mujukan. He understood what she meant and closed the door behind him when he left. When Mujukan went out, she suddenly came to the black pool and immediately sat down cross-legged to meditate. This meditation lasted for 7 days. The first thing Yuan woke up was to see the jade bead tree. The jade bead fruit tree was still where they came in. She took the jade bead fruit and several other fruit trees into the red earth. Having no choice but to dig 8 large holes next to the black pool, she planted 8 spiritual fruit trees. These 8 trees are all 5th level spiritual fruit trees. If you steal them once, you will definitely steal the highest level and most cherished ones. 8 trees and 8 varieties, Yuan felt very beautiful when she thought about it. She walked to a flame fruit, picked a fruit, cleaned it with a cleansing technique, and took a bite of the flame fruit. Kaka, well, it's more juicy and less meaty, crisp and sweet, full of flavor in the mouth, and rich in spiritual power. Not bad, Yuan finished a few bites, picked off a few more, and rewarded Mujukan as well. These are fire spiritual fruits, very suitable for him to eat. She saw that these 8 spiritual fruit trees were still too few, otherwise she would also use them to make wine. How about stealing the monkey wine from the demon monkey? Yuan's eyes were bright, she always wanted to try the legendary wine. Yuan glanced at Mujukan who was practicing. She couldn't suppress the excitement in her heart. She didn't even send the spiritual fruit. She left it in the wooden house and he went to get it after he finished practicing. So the foodie came out of the space with his consciousness, tightened the invisibility cloak around his body, and then quietly escaped to the ground. Well, this is Monster B? My grass, monkey, you are smart. Are they determined that she will not fire the fruit forest? There are also densely packed 2nd order bees in the orchard, are they going to sting her into a hornet's nest? Who is Yuan? Can a person be choked to death by urinating? She had already made up her mind. Yuan escaped underground and escaped outside the orchard. Her consciousness scanned the edge of the orchard, and then she quietly escaped from the ground. She waved her fire finger, and a small fire appeared on her finger. She threw it at the fruit tree again. Whoosh, crackle, crackle, the flame quickly wrapped the fruit tree around its roots and burned it. Within a moment, the flames started to burn upward. Buzz buzz. After a while, a large number of demon bees flew over. Looking at them from a distance, they didn't know what to do. Some high-level demon bees immediately raised the alarm. Yuan ran away after setting the fire. At this moment, the demon bees were in a panic. Who would notice her? Yuan quickly ran to the other direction of the orchard. There was a large cliff next to the orchard, where the monster monkey must live. It was just a little far away, so Yuan had to speed up. The burning fruit tree over there was about to burn out. Suddenly, a big branch on the fruit tree happened to fall down with a pop, and the flames on the top of the tree suddenly jumped up and burned another tree. This time they are in big trouble. The demon bees dare not get close to the flames. Who doesn't know that fire is their nemesis? Ordinary fire is better. The monk's elixir fire must not be touched. Who dares to get into trouble? This monk is so abominable, I never expected that she would actually burn the fruit trees. When the rescue monster monkeys arrived, the monster monkeys were so angry that they beat their chests. They were so angry that they vowed to capture the human monk and tear her alive. Yuan finally managed to escape to the foot of the cliff, and when she looked with her spiritual consciousness, she saw that the caves of all sizes were indeed filled with monster monkeys. However, quite a few demon monkeys were making panicky hizzy noises, and they were making unknown gestures with their hands. Not long after, a large group of demon monkeys were led by a 5th-level demon monkey and jumped towards the place where she set the fire. Yuan was puzzled, so she burned a spiritual fruit tree. What were so many monster monkeys doing? Catch her? Yuan immediately released her consciousness, looking for the cave where the monkey wine was kept. Hey, there is also a demon monkey with a powerful aura. When Yuan swept to the middle, a powerful aura appeared in her consciousness, and she quickly passed by. Then continued to sweep the cave next to it. Hey, it's here, Yuan felt happy. It turned out to be at the bottom of the mountain. Didn't this open the door to convenience for her? She looked around again and made sure that most of the monster monkeys had run away. Yuan immediately launched his escape technique and escaped under the wine barrel. When she saw it, she saw that the cave was so big and filled with wine barrels carved from giant trees. With a wave of her hand, the cave became bare. Yuan smiled so hard that her eyebrows curled up. She escaped underground and started moving the spiritual fruit tree again. In the cave, an old giant demon monkey raised his head and opened his eyes. Its consciousness swept towards the orchard and then into the caves. The old face with droopy skin looked puzzled and then lowered its head. Not long after, a snoring sound was heard. Yuan moved the spirit fruit trees in a happy manner. She really came to whatever she wanted. Before, she regretted that there were too few spirit fruit trees in the space. Now it's better. She moved more this time. And the 5th-level demon monkey over there is so worried that his beard is almost turning white. How to put out the fire? They don't understand water magic, so they have no choice but to have the demon monkeys pull out all the fruit trees around the fire area. If they don't get burned, won't the fire be extinguished? As expected, the monster monkeys rushed to pull out the trees, and the 3rd-level and 4th-level monster monkeys were quite fast at pulling out the trees. A stick of incense isolated the fire, but so many fruit trees were lost. The 5th-level demon monkey beat its chest again for a while, leaving a few demon monkeys to watch. It directed other demon monkeys to find the spiritual fruit trees that had just been pulled out. The place is well planted. It only now had time to find the hateful human monk. But it didn't matter. Once he saw it, he was so angry that he beat his chest and almost spit out his blood. The good spiritual fruit trees in the middle are missing a lot, so we still focus on high-level thieves? The fifth level demon monkey looked around but couldn't find anyone, so he had to go back and report to the old demon king to ask him to take action. When it came to the cave of the old demon king had already been drunk and fell asleep. In the end, the fifth level demon monkeys had no choice but to give up and send more than half of the demon monkeys out to guard the orchard. The culprit was currently chopping down the beehive on a giant tree. She moved no less than 50 spiritual fruit trees and closed them when they were ready, but thinking about the monster bees here, there must be honey to steal nearby. It is impossible for the demon monkeys to let the demon bees guard the forest for them all the way. It is estimated that they usually have a cooperative relationship. When the spirit fruit tree blooms, it requires demon bees to collect nectar. Only the fruit trees that have collected nectar will have high yields. No wonder the monster bees that are difficult to advance are all of the second level. How can there be so many fourth level and fifth level flowers? They happen to be in the monster monkey family. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 317. Chapter 317 Passage. Yuan spent a lot of effort to cut down a giant peak nest, which also contained a queen bee and many young peaks. It just so happens that her orchard will also need bees to collect nectar for pollination in the future. She exerted pressure, and the queen bee lay obediently in her nest without daring to move, and allowed her to move her nest. Yuan was brought back to space the moment he cut it off. Back in space, Yuan put the giant peak nest into the ground. The lower part was in the soil, and only half was left outside. After another round of fright, King Feng calmed down and looked at the place carefully. The spiritual energy here is rich, and spiritual flowers, elixirs, and spiritual fruits are everywhere. The Peak King was overjoyed. This was simply a paradise for these monster bees. When I see Yuan again, I am no longer afraid of her. Yuan settled the demon bees, then went to the black soil, pulled out some mature elixirs, and planted the 50 or so fruit trees. It took Yuan several days to plant alone. It just so happened that the young demon bees were able to fly out to collect honey. Yuan didn't care about them. Anyway, there were many flowers in the space, so she let them collect them. This actually gave her the opportunity to make honey in the hive, without accidentally killing a few young bees, which would be a pity. After Yuan filled 2 large jade bottles of honey, she returned to the wooden house, cut out a large piece of the meat of the 5th level demon ox king that had been put away, and took it outside to grill. After baking, the final step is to brush it with honey. Yuan smelled the golden roasted demon beef with various aromas, and she couldn't wait to take a bite. It's so delicious as expected. With this honey, this barbecue has a soul. Yuan was full of praise and ate 10 kilograms in one breath until the spiritual energy in her body began to flow wildly. A few days later, after Yuan finished refining the demon beef, she looked inside her dantian and found that she had more spiritual power. She was sitting cross-legged in the training room and was not in a hurry to go out. Instead, she was calculating what was needed to complete the Ying Dan. His spiritual consciousness scanned the space, and it was clear to his mind. There are already 7 species, and there are still 3 species to go. These 3 species are hard to find. One grows in ice sheets, one grows in volcanic craters, and one grows in the sea. Yuan frowned. The environment in which these 3 elixirs grew was a bit annoying. I just didn't know if there was such a place in the Juya forest. While Mujukan was practicing, Yuan put on the invisibility cloak and came out of the space to look for those 3 special places. She is agile in human form, and has an invisibility cloak and space as cover, allowing her to avoid powerful monsters time and time again. At this moment, she really didn't dare to underestimate the 9 nether forest. It's no wonder that the monks in the transformation stage couldn't escape. As we get deeper, the 5th level monsters are almost gathered together. At this time, Yuan walked into a dark forest. Hey, it's so cold. Yuan shivered, as if she had fallen into an ice hole. Rustling, rustling. Suddenly, the branches on the tree seemed to come alive, twisting their bodies like snakes and attacking Yuan. My grass, the demon plant. Yuan was shocked in her heart. This legendary demon plant gave her a lot of experience. Before she could react, she was tied tightly by the surrounding branches, unable to move. No space can be entered. Ah, it still stings. The pointed branches pricked her body randomly. Fortunately, she had practiced physical training and had a robe on her body. These demonic plants were unable to do anything to her for the time being. Swish, swish, swish. Yaezai had no choice but to her skin for a long time without even touching her skin, so she simply pulled her into a giant tree with all her strength. Yuan was pulled into a dark tree hole at a speed like a roller coaster, and was thrown in as soon as she entered the hole. Bang, Yuan was thrown firmly onto something hard, almost hurting her waist. She got up, patted her butt, and looked at the high exit. It was impossible to fly up. It is impossible to go up there, so you have to go underground. Yuan let go of her consciousness and looked down. I'll go, there is a deep pit below, which is full of green liquid. The liquid exudes an extremely fishy smell. There are many corpses in the pit. This demonic tree wants to trap her inside and use it as its nourishment. Yuan looked at the green liquid and rolled her eyes. Hey, this can be turned into spiritual power in space. Without blinking, she jumped in with a plop. With a movement of consciousness, a pit of green liquid and the bones entered the space. Not a drop is left. In the space, the green liquid and those bones that entered were swallowed up by the black earth within a dozen breaths. In an instant, the concentration of spiritual energy in the space increased a few points. Yuan took a few deep breaths of spiritual energy and returned to the tree hole. Huh, is there another passage here? Her consciousness looked at a dark passage on the wall of the tree cave. It seemed to be very deep, with no end visible in it. Yuan stepped forward and took a closer look. This passage was not natural, but man-made. She was curious about who built a tunnel in the tree and what was it used for. It was a tunnel opened by people from the outside world of cultivating immortals. Come here to practice when you have nothing to do. Her mind was thinking in confusion, and her feet had already stepped into the passage. The passage is 6 feet high and 3 feet wide, and can accommodate a person walking at will. There used to be green liquid in it, but she took it away. The ground was still wet and slippery at the moment, but after walking about a foot away, the passage slowly started to wind upwards. Yuan summoned the flying sword and walked up carefully. After about 10 feet, the passage went straight down again. At this time, there were a lot of monsters in the passage. These monsters were not very strong, at least level 3. They were probably afraid of going out and becoming food for other monsters, so they hid in this passage. It was also their misfortune that they met the lingering fear again. Meeting her was just to add some aura to the space. Just like this, Yuan was killing monsters and walking away. I don't know how long they walked, even Mujukin's retreat ended, so the two of them walked together to kill the monster. Mujukin, your soul thorns have been damaged again, Yuan said to him enviously. You can actually cast 28 of them instantly at one time. Mujukin said nothing. He patted her head and paid full attention to the monster in the passage. As a man, he naturally has to be more vulnerable than his wife in order to protect her. Yuan knew there was danger here and didn't mess around. The two of them packed up the monster and continued to move forward. Mujukin, there is light outside. The two of them walked for 2 months and finally came to an end. Well, let's go out. Mujukin was still walking in front, holding Yuan's hand. The two of them walked towards the light and walked out of the cave entrance, but they were in a valley. The two of them released their spiritual consciousness and were also in the mountains. Let's go out and take a look. Mujukin took off his sword and flew out of the valley. This place is already empty. They must have arrived at the world of cultivating immortals. She came to the world of cultivating immortals by accident. Yuan sighed, she didn't want to come. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 318. Chapter 318 The World of Immortal Cultivation. Coming to the world of immortality is not a bad thing. Her 3 elixirs can be found here. The 2 men came to the outside of the mountains with their swords. Run! Suddenly someone was shouting below them, and the 2 of them looked for the sound. It turned out that it was a foundation building monk leading a group of chi training monks fighting a late level 2nd level demon wolf, and they were about to be caught by the monster. Yuan sent out the soul thorn without hesitation. The 2nd level demon wolf, who was about to succeed, suddenly fell to the ground and died. The foundation building monk who had saved his life from the gate of was still in shock. The 2 of them came down with their swords. Ah, senior, thank you 2 seniors for your help. Brother Jizu saw the 2 standing in front of him. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and immediately saluted and thanked them. Yuan waved her hand, you should leave here quickly. Wolves are monsters that live in groups. If you kill one, hundreds or thousands of them will come to seek revenge. How can they resist? Yes, thank you, senior. The foundation building monk did not collect the corpse of the demon wolf on the ground, but turned around and left. Hey, please accept this demon wolf, Yuan called to the foundation building monk. The monk Tsuki looked back at them and said, this is the predecessor. Hunting. After speaking, they walked away, and the 7 traversal monks running out quickly went down the mountain. Haha, he is a person with a good temper. Yuan shook her head, threw the body of the demon wolf into the space, and followed them down the mountain. Uncle Master, why didn't you ask for the body of the 2nd level demon wolf? You can sell some spiritual stones to recover some losses, a male monk at the 12th level of chi training said in a somewhat displeased tone. Wanfen, do you know why the disciples who come out to practice don't save 5 out of 10? The foundation building monk glanced at him indifferently. Of course I was killed for treasure and eaten by monsters, the man named Wanfen said nonchalantly. The foundation building monk said with a half smile, now that you know it, you still blame me for not accepting the demon wolf just now. Don't you know that there is another reason why people die, and that is greed? Don't think about things that don't belong to you. But it's obvious. But what's that? Wanfeng, don't be ignorant. You attracted this monster wolf, and it almost killed us. Uncle Master saved us, so long as you don't thank us, you still blame other things. Don't think so. Your father is an elder, so he can let you do whatever you want. If you can, why don't you kill the demon wolf yourself? We won't ask for a hair from you, huh? A female monk interrupted Wanfeng's words and made a fuss. This female cultivator has a good personality, Yuan listened with interest from behind. The leading foundation establishment cultivator has a good outlook on life, and this little female cultivator is not bad either. That's right, uncle, don't follow that shameless person. If such a person came out alone, he would have died 1,000 or 800 times, another male disciple said to the foundation building monk. Uncle Master, it was too thrilling just now. Let's go to Xiaoyao City. I heard there is a large-scale auction there. Please show us what it is like, another female disciple said. The foundation building monk is still thinking about the scene just now. What method did the 2 seniors use to kill the demon wolf instantly? Okay, the foundation building monk nodded absently. Yuan, who had been following a group of them, heard about the large-scale auction in Xiaoyao City. Want to go? Mujukan looked at Yuan, who looked a little interested. Well, let's go and have a look. We haven't seen an auction yet. Yuan nodded. Mujukan, then let's go take a look and just follow them. The group of people came down the mountain and jumped on the flying boat and flew away. The 2 of them followed behind with their swords. There are some small towns outside this mountain range. It is estimated that this is a remote place with not many people living there. After flying for a long time, the traveler landed in a small city and rested for the night. They naturally rest in space. Flying again the next day. On the third day, they all stopped outside the free city. Yuan looked around and saw that Xiaoao city was not small in size, much taller and more majestic than the cities on Xianling continent. The two of them entered the city after handing over the spirit stone, then bought 2 maps and found an inn to stay. Mujukan, the world of immortality is not small, Yuan said after reading it. You're not young, are you going out for a walk or staying in the inn? You go, I'm at the inn. Yuan knew that he must be going to inquire about the auction. Mujukan nodded and went out. After Mujukan went out, Yuan entered the space. She had not yet looked at the monkey wine that had moved in. She came to the black soil, cleared another acre of land, and moved the barrels there. She was in a hurry to collect them and collected them on the black soil. After moving it, the crushed elixir was pulled out and the cleaned elixir was added. She then flew up to a large barrel and opened the lid of the barrel. The moment she opened it, a strong aroma of wine wafted out, filling her entire sense of smell. Holy shit, monkey wine really deserves its reputation. Yuan Guang felt like she was in a state of ecstasy when she smelled the alcohol. She was already drunk even before she drank. The spiritual energy contained in this monkey wine is much richer than the spiritual wine she brewed herself. Yuan took a cup, scooped out a small cup, and then took a small sip. Ah, it's so delicious. There was a strong fruity aroma in her mouth. The smell of wine and various fruity aromas mixed together to create another strong fruity wine flavor that almost swallowed her tongue. She had drank many high-end wines in her previous life, as well as the spiritual wine she brewed herself. In front of this monkey wine, she was like Gushui. Yuan drank a whole glass in one gulp and felt even more dizzy. She shook her head and filled 2 jade bottles with her consciousness. When Mujukan came back, she would drink with him. Good things should be shared with the one you love, right? After installing it, Yuan put the lid back on and took out the space. Before Mujukan came back, she sat cross-legged on the bed and meditated. Mujukan went out for an hour and found out everything about the auction. He was a late-stage Jindan monk and got 2 invitation cards to the VIP room. Then he returned to the inn. As soon as he entered the house, he placed the door number and walked in. He saw her face was like a peach blossom, and her face was flushed, which made her look even more stunning. He stepped forward and smelled it, smelling a strong aroma of wine. Why are Waner drinking? Mujukan frowned. He didn't want to disturb her, so he sat silently beside her. In confusion, Yuan saw that it was him who was back, and moved the 2 of them into the space without saying a word. She shook her head, took out the 2 bottles of wine she had packed before, and handed one to Mujukan. Come on, Mujukan, try this monkey wine, a good wine, an absolute good wine. Mujukan supported Yuan, who was still shaking, and opened the lid with the other hand. Sure enough, the strong aroma of wine came, and he couldn't help but take a sip. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 319. Chapter 319 Auction 1. It is indeed a good wine. Mujukan looked at Yuan, who was a little drunk in his arms, and wondered how much this guy had drunk. Does it taste good? Come on, let's drink some more. Yuan broke away from his arms, took out her bottle, pulled off the lid, raised the jade bottle in front of Mujukan and said, have a drink. After saying gilu gilu, finish the bottle. Mujukan was dumbfounded. It was too late to stop him. He smiled bitterly. Except for the time when they had a drink, This was the first time they drank together. Looking at her expectant eyes, he did not disdain Juana's interest and became bored. After drinking the spirit wine, a hot feeling hit his whole body, making him feel uncomfortable. He immediately sat down cross-legged and meditated. At this moment, Yuan not only felt hot and tight on her body, but also had a feeling of ecstasy, and there was a beautiful man around. How could this guy stand it? He couldn't hold it anymore, and he knocked down Mujukan, who was meditating. Send your own kiss. Mujukan couldn't stand Yuan's enthusiasm, and he couldn't control the feeling in his heart. As soon as he turned over, their positions changed. After a while, the two of them couldn't tell who was who. I don't know how long it took before the two woke up. Waner, Mujukan called her emotionally. It turned out that her Waner could be so beautiful, so he hugged her tighter. Yuan buried her face in the quilt and didn't dare to see him. The stamina of this monkey wine must be too strong. It was okay just after drinking it, but it was terrible afterward. Thinking of the unprecedented violent waves between the two of them, Yuan really wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. No, she can use the earth escape technique to escape underground. Mujukan knew that she was shy, so he held her tightly in his arms lovingly, feeling her. When will the auction start? Yuan asked angrily in his arms. It's still early. 10 days later, Mujukan's ambiguous voice sounded, meaning that it can still come on. Yuan didn't understand what he meant. The monkey wine had a lot of stamina. The two had fought heartily for several days, and there was still some stamina left in their bodies. At this moment, she remembered the scene when she stole the monkey wine. There was obviously a powerful being in the cave, but she hadn't been found yet. At that time, she was still puzzled, thinking that they really didn't find her and opened such a big door for her. It turned out that he was drunk. It was still early, and the two of them were always in high tension in the Juya forest. Now that they had time to relax, the two simply indulged themselves completely in the space. Mujukan was thinking about taking the opportunity to create a human being. It has been so many years. Although they are both Jindan monks, they are still in their 50s and 60s. In the secular world, they may have many children and grandchildren, and they may also be hung on the wall. Waner, let's have a baby. Child, Yuan touched his forehead. Isn't this guy just hot-headed? What's wrong? You don't want it. Mujukan's voice was a little uncomfortable. Waner touched his forehead, thinking he was talking nonsense. Why don't you want it? We've been drinking, how can we want it now? What are you thinking? It's just that it's difficult for us monks to have children, so of course it's good to have children. Yuan glared at him and said, in fact, she also wanted it, even though they couldn't get pregnant after being together for so long, she thought she was suffering from infertility. Mu Yunshan and his wife are also monks. They can have a baby, why can't she? Mujukan turned from worry to joy, hugged her and whispered in her ear. Yuan was so embarrassed that he punched him, and finally the two decisively started to create humans. The auction was held as scheduled, and the two of them came out of the room to the auction building of Ruyi Pavilion. The scene was very grand, and all the great gods came one after another. After they entered the scene, it was the turn of Yuan and others. They handed the invitation card to the receptionist and took the small teleportation array to the private room number 6 on the 3rd floor and sat down. As soon as they sat down, the maid brought melon and fruit snacks and an auction brochure. Maid, senior, if you need anything, please call me. After saying this, the maid stepped back. Mujukan picked up the auction book and flipped through it. Yuan took out a spiritual fruit and opened it. Click click click. With her eyes still through the window, she could clearly see the auction table in the lobby on the 1st floor below. But it is not possible to use spiritual consciousness to check the private rooms on each floor. The auction has not started yet, and there is a commotion in the lobby on the 1st floor. She scanned it and saw that most of them were chi practitioners and foundation building monks sitting below. Wanner, look, here are the fourth order red dates. Mujukan handed the booklet to her and pointed at a picture and said excitedly. Yuan took it and took a look, and sure enough, there was a picture on the brochure. It was the red blood jujube, the fire elixir in the Jiying Dan, which grew in the crater of the volcano. I didn't expect to encounter this at my first stop. She took a look and saw that this was the second to last auction item, followed by 4 mysterious auction items that were not marked. In other words, this thing is cherished but definitely not the most precious thing. But the price is probably very expensive. Mujukan, there are 4 more that should be the final ones. We can bid on them later. Let me sort out how many spirit stones we have now. Mujukan nodded. At this time, Yuan entered the space with her spiritual consciousness and took out 2 storage bags. One of them contained low-grade spiritual stones. There were many of them, including 1 billion. In the other storage bag are medium-grade spiritual stones, estimated to be worth hundreds of millions. These spirit stones were obtained from the corpses of monks collected in Xianling continent. There are monster corpses in the space to increase the spiritual energy, so these spirit stones are useless. They came here and haven't started using it yet. Yuan thought about it. These spiritual stones should be enough, not enough for her to sell some marrow cleansing pills. I believe the marrow cleansing pills are also popular items. Dang, 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 a beautiful nun on the auction stage below shook a bell, and the noisy crowd immediately fell silent. Yuan Dingqing looked at the beautiful female cultivator. She was in her 20s, wearing a red robe, which outlined her beautiful figure into charming curves, and her every move was enchanting. The monk's eyes below were so glued to her body that she couldn't even pluck them out, which aroused the contempt of many female cultivators, and of course envy and jealousy. Yuan looked at Mujukan. He didn't feel surprised in his eyes. Whether the person was male or female didn't seem to shock him at all. Well, cough, 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 today is our Ruyi Pavilion's annual auction. Thank you fellow Taoists and seniors for your support. This auction is hosted by me. We still follow the old rules. The final decision is to be the one who wins the treasure. In exchange for spirit stones, those who don't have enough spirit stones can exchange them for treasures of equal value. Let's start with the ugly words. During the bidding process, you must not maliciously raise the price, let alone participate in the bidding randomly and break the rules of this pavilion. Mr. Zhang, he is still working hard for our court to pay off his debts. The beautiful host's delicate and soft voice sounded. She seemed to be talking delicately and smiling, but there was something in her words that made people not allowed to be violated, let alone criticized. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 320. Chapter 320 Auction 2. Yuan and the other 2 listened quietly to the host's opening remarks. It is not unusual for a scene to always have an explanation. After the hostess made some nonsense, the long-awaited auction officially began. The following is the first item of our auction, a 3rd-level elixir, a high-quality golden elixir. Please take it. As soon as the hostess finished speaking, a jade box appeared from her desk. Everyone knows that it is a teleportation array. The presiding female cultivator took down the jade box, opened it again, and took out a pill bottle from it. She held up the jade bottle and said, "This is a top-grade golden elixir. The starting price is 1,000 spiritual stones. The price cannot be increased each time if there are less than 100 low-grade spiritual stones." The bidding begins. As soon as she finished speaking, the monks in the hall started buzzing. Most of them are chi training monks and foundation building monks, and there are relatively few who have spiritual stones. However, one monk still raised his hand and shouted, 1,100 spiritual stones. 1,500 spiritual stones, a female cultivator's cold voice sounded. 1,000, 600 spiritual stones. 1800 spiritual stones. With the beginning, the voices in the lobby started to rise and fall. Yuan watched it with great interest. Mujukan, this gold binding elixir is very popular. If my top grade gold binding elixir comes out, it should be worth a lot of spiritual stones. Well, the private room hasn't been taken out yet, Mujukan said. That's right. When there are fewer monks in the lobby who can afford spiritual stones, the big guys in the private room will take action. I guess once they take action, the food in the lobby will basically stop. Sure enough, when the monks in the hall shouted for 3,000 spiritual stones, there were few monks shouting out the price. 4,000 spirit stones. Someone finally took action in the private room on the third floor. 4,005 spiritual stones. No male or female voices could be heard in the private room on the fourth floor. 5,000 spiritual stones is the second female nun bidding in the lobby. The monks in the lobby all looked at her. I grass, this female monk dares to fight with the spiritual stone in the private room. Some people admire, and more are gloating. The people in the private room are not only rich, but many also have backgrounds. There are not many casual cultivators like Yuan and others who are capable and have spiritual stones. Most of the people sitting in the lobby are casual practitioners without any background. Casual cultivators either have poor qualifications and are not accepted by the sect, or they like freedom. This type of cultivator is often the person who lives at the bottom of the world of immortality. Hence, there are not many who have spiritual stones and not many who are powerful. For someone like this female cultivator who has both foundation building strength and spiritual stones, everyone is not only curious but also gloating about her misfortune. Even if she takes the treasure, she will end up being killed for the treasure. Yuan couldn't help but look at her twice. This female cultivator was so fiercely exposed in front of the monk's eyes. She might not be able to hold on even if she was slapped, but she didn't rule out that she had a way to escape. 8,000 spiritual stones. In just a short time, the price of a gold-formed elixir has soared to such a high price. Yuan was a little excited. She still had dozens of gold-forming elixirs in her space, so she simply sold them for spiritual stones. She would refining the gold-forming elixirs from her elder brother and theirs. This time she got a lot of elixirs in the Juya forest, so she doesn't have to worry about not having any elixirs. Moreover, she is also a golden elixir cultivator now, so the quality of the golden elixirs she refines will definitely not be low. 10,000 and 5,000, while Yuan was stunned, someone took action on the fourth floor. 10,000 and a half, is there anyone who wants to raise the price? The female cultivator in charge shouted with a smile. A single golden elixir was sold at such a high price. She was in a good mood, and her voice was a little sweet. 20,000 spiritual stones. As expected, the people on the fifth floor increased the price. Hiss, the people in the lobby took a breath, the price was so high, they just looked at it. The female cultivator's face was very serious. She took a deep breath and said, 30,000 spiritual stones. Wow, everyone in the lobby is confused. This female cultivator is hiding something secretly. 60,000 spiritual stones, a voice from the fifth floor said slowly. 60,000 spirit stones per time. Does anyone want to increase the price? At this time, the sweet voice of the female cultivator in charge sounded, reminding everyone to hurry up if they want to increase the price. The scene suddenly became quiet, and no one raised the price again. The female cultivator in charge saw that no one had raised the price. The price could be said to be sky high. She knocked the hammer for the second time and said, 60,000 spiritual stones twice. After still no one raised the price, she finally struck the third hammer, 60,000 spirit stones for the third time. Congratulations to this fellow Taoist. Please wait a moment, fellow Taoist, and a waiter from our pavilion will bring it to you. The following is the third price from our pavilion. The two auction items are a medium-grade magic weapon and a robe. The starting price is 2,000 spiritual stones. Please bid. Yuan was still in shock. A high-quality gold-forming elixir sold for 60,000 spiritual stones. Her gold-forming elixir basically cost nothing. If she sold it, she would make a fortune. No, after the auction is over, she will open an elixir shop here to sell elixirs and earn spiritual stones. The foodie in space will still have to feed him spiritual stones in the future. She didn't pay attention to how many spiritual stones the magic weapon robe below had taken. Instead, the female cultivator in charge took out another magic weapon and said, "This is a top-grade defensive magic weapon, iron armor shield made from the shell of a 4th-level armored beast. It's a functional little girl who doesn't need it. Say more, everyone knows that this is the most defensive weapon." The bidding starts at 5,000 spirit stones. The bidding begins. 6,000 spiritual stones, a private room on the 3rd floor was the first to bid. 10,000 spiritual stones. 20,000 spiritual stones. 30,000 spiritual stones. 50,000 spiritual stones. Oops, Yuan's jaw dropped to the ground in shock. A 4th-level defensive weapon is so expensive? The thousands of 4th-level monsters she threw into the space, how many spiritual stones did they eat? Ouch, my god, what kind of loser is this? Okay, don't feel bad. Mujukan saw her crying face and quickly held her hand to comfort her. Mujukan, there are so many spiritual stones, Yuan said in a tearful voice. It's okay, my husband will hunt for you. Mujukan put her head on his shoulder, patted her, and comforted her in a low voice like a child. How did they know that the things on monster beasts were so valuable? Staying in a place without monks all year round really limits their knowledge. But it's not too late now. Others in Juya Forest will die if they enter, but they may not. Yuan finally felt better after being comforted by Mujukan. When she heard that the top-quality magic weapon was sold for 200,000 spirit stones, her heart ached again for a while. Yuan felt bad after most of the auction. She also knew that if she hunted a 4th-level monster in the future, she would at least skin it. It really made her gain a lot of knowledge. She decided that they would not go back until their 10-year appointment with Yu Heiran was up, and she would earn spiritual stones and gain experience here. Monks will always ascend to the spiritual world when they reach the stage of becoming gods. They cannot be just bumpkins there forever. She also believes that one day she will ascend to the spiritual world. It's just that you can't know nothing when you reach the spiritual world. End of this chapter.